You think in life in general, on an almost 24-hour basis, are you saying you think people read your mind, like the whole world?
And that's the other thing. Sometimes I think that just you can read my mind now or maybe a person in that car. But a lot of the times, about 95% of the time, I think the whole world can read my mind. Meaning, right now I think George, whether he's in his house or another delusion is he's
in his house an hour and a half away,
sees that car in front of him, and
he sees what you see.
He sees my hand. He thinks what I'm not just reads my mind, but thinks what I'm thinking. Touches the steering wheel.
Feels the steering wheel.
Eats my food that I'm eating. When I used to, whatever I do,
Chesterfield Road.
I would think that the whole world experiences that.
Okay.
So there's other symptoms that I have that I've never told anybody. I think I mentioned to you, but you might have forgot. But I've really never told anybody. But first off, I want to talk about the symptoms I have talked about, which is
the symptoms of living with schizophrenia.
This is symptoms of living with schizophrenia. These are the ones I have talked about. And the first one is what started to get me delusional about things, which is that people said things that I must have hallucinated because people say it's not real, even though I believe it's real. But it's that they say things that relate to what I'm thinking. So it would seem to me the obvious logical conclusion I come to is, well, they know what I'm thinking because they're either humming along the song on my iPod or they've said something that I was thinking. A lot of it is on YouTube, but a lot of it is real life too. There hasn't been much lately. The last couple of years, a year ago was when it's pretty much stopped for a while. But since this happens so frequently, I still think that people know what I'm thinking. And
you think in life in general, on an almost 24-hour basis, are you saying you think people read your mind, like the whole world?
And that's the other thing. Sometimes I think that just you can read my mind now or maybe a person in that car. But a lot of the times, about 95% of the time, I think the whole world can read my mind. Meaning, right now I think George, whether he's in his house or another delusion is he's
in his house an hour and a half away,
sees that car in front of him, and
he sees what you see.
He sees my hand. He thinks what I'm not just reads my mind, but thinks what I'm thinking. Touches the steering wheel.
Feels the steering wheel.
Eats my food that I'm eating. When I used to, whatever I do,
Chesterfield Road.
I would think that the whole world experiences that.
Okay, so let's do a test. Okay, where are we driving right now?
To Springfield.
Why?
Because we're gonna visit George and the kids.
We're gonna see your brother.
Yeah.
Our brother.
Yeah.
And the babies. His two kids.
Yeah.
And his wife.
Yes.
Annie, right?
Yeah.
So George, Annie, Zoe, and Judah.
Yeah.
Okay. And your delusion, or your distorted reality, is, as
take the second exit.
As some would call it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, if that was possible, Kip, think about it like this.
Okay.
He couldn't function. He couldn't take care of his kids.
Yeah.
He couldn't treat his wife. He couldn't love them and watch them and be with them because he'd constantly be doing what you were doing.
That's why
which would make it absolutely
impossible. That's why I have another delusion that makes me think because I think that, and I have another delusion that everybody is like in a vortex or something.
Okay.
Like, as if right now the only thing that exists in the physical world is the things around me, the cars, and whatever I see comes there from the vortex. So when I go out into this, like right now, this car came. What about
the trees?
The trees.
These trees have been here for decades, centuries even.
Yeah, I think that the physical world, the trees, they all come from a vortex that we've all.
So as you go along,
like everybody's in my head.
Yeah.
Doing like everyone's living my life.
Right. So as you go along, these things are just placed there, right before you arrive.
Exactly. I've even been on YouTube, and when I was on YouTube in Starbucks.
I-91 south for 60 miles.
I was wondering how all these people are coming from, and I was thinking they come from the vortex, and I heard Martin Scorsese on YouTube, another hallucination that people say I hallucinate. He said, "Oh, he's wondering and this is off topic to what he was talking about in David Letterman. He goes, they weren't talking about anything. He goes, oh, he was wondering where these people were coming from. He started laughing, and I was just wondering where these people were coming from.
Yeah.
So it makes me really think whether it's hallucination or not. They're from a vortex, or they're in my head, living my life.
Yeah.
And like right now, Lauren and Joe are not in New York, and Marge is not driving. Like, you weren't in the airplane yesterday.
So I wasn't was I just on the phone with Margaret, and she told me
you were on the phone with Margaret.
She was coming home she's coming from Connecticut.
I think Marge was in a white room in a vortex talking to you.
Wow, Kip.
Like kind of like Keanu Reeves in Matrix, like in another reality, in a separate reality, in like a halfway reality between the vortex and the physical world.
Yeah.
Talking to you and telling you, okay, I'm going to be there in an hour and a half, and when we get there, she's going to be there, or I think she's going to be there after we get there. But I could be wrong. But like, and she's just going to meet us there. When I first thought that, it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, you bet.
And now I'm okay with it, but I worry that the world is bored. Like, I think that everyone lives my life, and that they're bored about. It's like I used to think that the world was suffering.
Yeah.
Like they were burning in hell. This is a long time ago, and it really made me crazy. Now I think the world is the suffering, but they are in a way because they're living my life and they have to do what I do. You know, it's like when I
everyone.
Wow. I think everyone in the world, and I'm not sure where I got that delusion from. I think maybe from YouTube, but I think it's just me thinking about why. Like I think why, because people say things on YouTube that were on my mind. So I think, how can they read my mind? Or what we talked about earlier, how I came to that conclusion, because if everyone is doing what I'm doing, then how could George function?
Right.
You know, and if they're really there on YouTube, what would an actor like Natalie Portman or Johnny Depp be talking to me about when they say things or Letterman when they say things that I'm thinking? They must really be on YouTube on a 2D frame on the computer. So I think, where were they before that? Like, they're not going to take their time out of their lives to go on a computer and say things that are on my mind. So I automatically think, well, maybe they're in a vortex. So, or I just call it a vortex, but maybe they're in a spiritual world where they're living my life. Like, everyone's in my head. And so I get those kind of things, but most of my delusions are based on things that really happened to me. So when people say things that I'm thinking, it's logical for me to say, hey, I know people read my mind, because and no one can tell me different, because those things I've experienced. The only thing that you can tell me different is that I hallucinated those things. It just doesn't seem to me that I hallucinated those things, because it's so different.
Because you're experiencing all of this in real time.
Exactly. This
is your reality, kid.
Exactly. And then my doctors say that the hallucinations are different than what normal schizophrenics hallucinate. But they say it's because they don't understand schizophrenia enough. They're careful to say I hallucinate. Now, you and my friends and my family have told me that whether you're hallucinating or not, you think I hallucinate, but it's not real.
Well, but it's real to you.
But it's real to me.
We all make it clear that we're not going to invalidate what you're going through by telling you it's not actually real.
Yeah.
We just tell you it's in a distorted reality.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you know the things like the tool that I use for my bipolar disorder.
Hands are real.
My hands are real.
Yeah.
They're literally in everyone that can see me's reality, unless they're in my pockets.
Yeah.
And if I grasp my hands, I can sense that they're real. I can feel the grasp of my hands.
Yeah.
And then I can recognize that this is in all of our realities, and the things I see and hear that aren't audible or visual to anyone else are in a distorted reality. And Kip, I agree for that situation to pertain to you as well. Now, the difference we have here, Kip, is that you are living this delusion 24 hours a day.
Yeah, and in the beginning, I was a mess. It just took me time to deal with it and say, you know what? I'm tired of suffering. I'm tired of worrying. When I think things that... I have other delusions that I think people can... When I pay attention to people, I give them my chi, my attention, and I think they have the power to hurt people, so they make people do things. So, like, for example, when we were in Australia, my aunt, my tita Nena, we went to visit her, if you remember that. She was, you looked uncomfortable because it was smelling there, because she's overweight, and she urinated on the couch because she's really like 400 pounds, and she's a real mess, and we're in a small little apartment, and you looked uncomfortable. But the delusion I was getting was that she was from a vortex. She just came from the vortex, and she was hurting you to force my sister to get my aunt, who didn't want to come in, from the car to visit her.
Wow.
And when I was outside, my aunt said something in Filipino when my sister was walking with her, because she didn't want to come in. She said she was gonna cry, meaning she didn't want to come in. But so to me, I was thinking my aunt was hurting you because she wanted my other aunt to come in and visit her. Now before, when those things happen, I would really go apeshit. I would go crazy. It would make me feel so scared. Like I'm thinking people are using me and doing all these things, and my insides would feel bad, and it was just a mess. When that happened the last time on the show we were there, it was when I was already better, and I'm better now. I just kept cool. I said, look, maybe Kevin's hurting. Maybe she's hurting Kevin. But what I think is, I have another delusion that when I worry and get nervous, that things will happen worse, and she'll get more power. And even if she didn't, and that's not true, I just can't suffer anymore. And I think that if I do suffer, it gets worse. So I think that...
So you've been using for quite some time, Kim. How many years have you been using these mindfulness techniques that you learned from educating yourself to calm these delusions so you can function at a very high level?
Probably the last 4 to 5 years.
You know how to just keep it calm and centered so that on the outside, Kim, no one can tell. Unless you go into talking about this or babbling about this in front of the public or your family or your friends, nobody but, you, me, Margaret, we know.
It's just like, it doesn't seem like I'm thinking about it.
It just seems like you're just chilling, and you're able to answer questions from people.
Yeah.
And if you're able to engage in complete conversation.
Yeah, because most schizophrenics have a hard time with the cognitive function.
Yes, so they can't come out of their brains to be able to function among other people. Yeah. Tell us right now, Kip. Tell us right now what these mindfulness techniques are. How did you learn them? Like, how were you able to live this delusion all day long, every day, 365, 24/7, 365, and be able to answer my questions?
Part of it is because I just got tired of suffering. So I made myself, I don't block it out. My father has this technique where he said, just block it out, put it out of your head. And I tried doing that. That's really hard. That's completely hard to do. So it's hard to take the thoughts out of my head. What I did was just not get nervous, which I learned from him too. When he had panic attacks, his heart would palpitate. And after a while, he would say, you know what, my heart palpitates and I get nervous every time, and I haven't died yet. So I'm not going to die. So after a while, his heart would palpitate and he would control and say, I'm not going to die, I'm not going to die, I'm not scared. And part of the thing about panic attacks is that even if your heart palpitates, when you get nervous, that's the sickness. You get anxiety because your heart's palpitating. So if you don't feel nervous and your heart just palpitates and you don't get nervous, you won't have a panic attack. Your heart will palpitate, and he used that, and he was strong enough, and it's very hard to do. You have to be really strong. The symptom is still there. Like with me, I still think thoughts, but I just don't get nervous. And part of the reason is I got strong because I just got so tired of being nervous. I was in a 24/7 nervous state forever, for years. For at least 2 years, I was nervous every day. Almost 24/7. There was about a 6 to 8 month period where I was nervous 24/7 for about 6 to 8 months. This is during the time of my attempt, where 24/7 I'd wake up, I'd go to sleep, in my dreams I'd be paranoid. And then maybe for 3 years during that time, it was still almost 24/7. There was only a few times where I was maybe a couple hours I was okay, but throughout the whole day I was nervous. So I was so tired I just got so fed up of being nervous that I forced myself to be mindful to not be nervous.
So Kip, I think what you're saying is you use logic. Like your dad, he said, okay, I get these panic attacks, I think I'm gonna die, but in all the umpteen times I've had these panic attacks, I haven't died.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to die.
Exactly.
So in essence, Kip, you are looking at your delusions and saying, okay, this may be going on, but it's not going to kill me.
It's not going to kill me.
So I can continue and I can function.
And until I find out for sure that it's happening, then I'll deal with it.
Right.
Just thinking that it's happening can be sometimes worse because you don't know it's real. Like I think it's real. I think it's real, but I don't have any proof that it's real.
And you don't have any proof that it's not.
I don't have any proof it's not.
No matter what people say to you.
People say to me, yeah. So
wow, Kip. Let's take a break there for some of our getting tired.
Okay.
Wow, Kip.